You're listening to the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Jeff Brantley.
What's up, everybody? Episode 94 of the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast coming your way in just a few minutes here. So much to talk about, so many fights to preview. I'm on a combat sports caffeine high right now. Not an actual caffeine high, I'm on a combat sports caffeine high right now as so many fights. I mean, right now I'm recording episode 94 while the PFL 4 card is going on, so I'm keeping some tabs on that right now. No official reaction on episode 94 here. I'll have more of that coming up for sure on Monday's edition, episode 95 of the podcast, reacting to everything, but keeping tabs on that right now. And then, of course, once this episode is released on Friday, we have Bellator 260 coming up tonight, and then on Saturday, UFC 263, in which we see Israel Adesanya taking on Marvin Vettori, Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno, the rematch there. So many great fights. I'm going to preview all of those coming up today right here on episode 94 of the Man in the Cage podcast. Again, you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Man in the Cage Pod. Go to the website maninthecagemmma.show for the About page. Merchandise if you want some Man in the Cage swag, t-shirts, any of that stuff. If you want to support the show further, there's a support the show button, top right hand corner of the screen. Press that. It's little as $1 a month, all the way up to $10 a month. I appreciate all my supporters out there, and then also some other goodies out there, including the sponsors page. I'll shout them out right now. We have DBK Media, who's a sponsor on the show, and newly added sponsor to the show, DBK Media, a great company. Again, go to their Twitter at DBK Media to follow them on Instagram and on Twitter. They'll help you with their website. They'll help you with ton of things. Just go to their website, check them out, DBK Media. They handle a lot of my video, a lot of my extra content I'm doing right now, their team over there. So a lot of great stuff. Go check them out, DBK Media. And then, of course, go check out Bovada. And you can use my link right now, bit.ly/the Man in the Cage to sign up for Bovada. So many fights. You want to get some action in on them? Go check out Bovada, bit.ly/the Man in the Cage. Use my link to sign up. They'll give you some cool bonuses, all that good stuff. So go check that out. So those sponsors are also up on the website, maninthecagemmma.show, a bunch of other stuff. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, there's a sponsor tab up there as well that I'd love to add you to the program there. So go check out the website. And then on YouTube, some of you are already watching this episode on YouTube, but if you're just finding me here, go subscribe to the channel, the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast channel on YouTube. That way you get the latest notifications whenever a new episode drops and whenever a new UFC 4 simulation drops. I just had, speaking of DBK Media, I just had the Man in the Cage team here send me a couple simulations from UFC 263. We're going to simulate Israel Adesanya, Marvin Vettori, and then Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. They're a lot of fun. I don't watch them. Before I open them, I don't watch them. I open them up, and then I give some commentary with them so that it's on the fly, that type of thing. But I'm looking forward to doing that. And once those are released, you'll get the notification on the YouTube channel. So, again, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast channel right now. You'll get those UFC 4 simulation notifications. You'll get the episode notifications, and then you'll get all the other notifications too. Like this week, I covered the Bellator 260 Media Day, the virtual one. On Wednesday, got to ask a handful of questions to a bunch of different fighters. Jason Jackson, Nick Newell, Aaron Pico, Taiwan Claxton, Justin Gonzalez. Asked all those guys questions. All great stuff. That's up on the YouTube channel as well. I've also tweeted them out. They're also on social media, but I store everything on YouTube as well. So make sure you don't miss anything by going to the YouTube channel. And then if you're more into the, as I always say, the old school version of just listening to the podcast, which I do sometimes, you can also go to Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, guys. Hit the follow button there or the subscribe button, and then you get the notifications there for the audio versions of things too. That way you get those episodes and you can listen in your car, or you're taking your kids to school, or you're out on a walk in the park, something like that. You can't watch the video, can't watch my mug on the screen right here talk about combat sports. You can listen to me though on any of those platforms and a bunch of other ones too. I'm on a bunch of other different platforms, really any podcast platform, guys. So go check out all of that right now. All right, I'm so pumped. As I said, I did a live video earlier today talking about this PFL card, talking about Clarissa Shields, talking about Brittany Elkin. Speaking of YouTube, go check out that. If you missed it earlier, that's still up on the YouTube channel. I'm going to keep it up there. You can check out what I had to say about that. I'm also going to look to do a live show coming up on YouTube, or probably on Instagram too, coming up on Friday after the UFC weigh-ins and leading into that Bellator card with some later thoughts. I'm going to have some thoughts here previewing everything, but I'll probably have some final thoughts as well. So I'll do a live video there coming up tomorrow. But I did a live video today. I'm recording this episode now. I also have a guest coming up for you in just 1 second here in part 2 of the show. Eddie Cross from 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas, part of Fight Night Radio. He's going to join me. He's also going to give his thoughts on 263. And then I have a cool thing coming down the pipe here. I just sat down. I just recorded it. I talked to a new Bellator middleweight. I mentioned it on the live show, so I guess I'll mention it here now. But Lance Wright from Team Elevation, new Bellator middleweight, he just sat down and joined me. We talked about the training camp, his upcoming opponent, a ton of different things. I even gave a Drew Dober story, a Drew Dober red wine story. You're not going to want to miss it, trust me. That'll be coming up later next week at some point. Again, I'll let you guys know on Twitter, all that stuff, when that's going to drop. It was a great conversation. You won't want to miss it, but some cool things coming down the pipe. So again, I'm just running today. I'm running on Combat Sports caffeine high right here, and I'm going to carry it right into episode 94 of the Man in the Cage podcast, including this preview, and that's where we're going to go right now, right into the meat and the potatoes of it. Bellator 260. I'm going to go through that one first. Then I'm going to go through UFC 263. And then I'm going to go through a little boxing today, actually, because you do have Shakur Stevenson taking him on Jeremiah Nakathila coming up on Saturday night as well. So I will briefly get into some boxing, mostly MMA today, but that's the rundown for the show. So we'll start out with Bellator 260 and the fantastic main event. And again, I've been covering a lot of these Bellator media days and post-fight press conferences in the virtual media sessions. So go check me out on Twitter and on Instagram if you're a diehard MMA fan. If you love Bellator MMA like I do, go check me out. Both those places at Man in the Cage Pod. I'm asking some of these fighters questions, obviously, getting the videos out there to you guys. And I'm also just tweeting out the quotes in general, keeping tabs on Bellator, everything Bellator. So go check it out there, and I'll have some more stuff coming up tonight as well in the post-fight media sessions there. Whatever happens, I'll be there to ask some of the fighters questions and get the answers that everybody wants to know, including myself, obviously. But Bellator 260 coming up tonight, main event. Douglas Lima taking on Yaroslav Amosov for the welterweight championship. Should be a really good fight. I mean, you have Douglas Lima coming in with over 30 wins in his career, I think right at 40 or right over 40 career fights. You have Amosov coming in who's undefeated, right around that 30 mark. He's about 25-0, right? He's 25-0. So you have some, especially Lima, obviously. So you have some experienced guys here. You have an undefeated guy in Amosov. Should be a very, very fun fight. And two guys that are also somewhat very even, and I think that's what's going to make this fight fun, is that Douglas Lima doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, and to this point, Yaroslav Amosov doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. Now, that can always get tested, because I'm going to get into it in my official prediction after I go through the strengths and weaknesses, probably his biggest test to date, obviously. But going through it real quick here, and, looking at what both of these men do, what their strengths and their weaknesses are. We'll go with Douglas Lima, the champion, first, what he does well. He uses a pretty good guard along with head movement most of the time to have some pretty airtight defense when he's striking. So he'll eat some strikes here and there, like every fighter will. Unless you're Floyd Mayweather or you're that defensively brilliant, you're going to eat some strikes here and there, obviously. But Douglas Lima is pretty airtight with his defense because of how his guard is, because of how his head movement works with all of that together. He's got some accurate boxing combinations, precision and timing, most important with all those. When he does throw those combinations, yeah, it's great when you always put punches and bunches, but the precision and timing of what Douglas Lima does with all those is what makes him a special fighter, and what has made him one of the better, or maybe dare to say best welterweight champions of all time. That Douglas Lima puts a lot of things together, and that precision and timing is one of those. Devastating right hand when it lands. We've seen it over and over again. Ton of power in that right hand. He's good at moving you into his shots as well. Meaning he's great at getting you to move a certain way or drop your guard, so that punch, that strike he's trying to throw can land, So he's great at moving you into his strikes is another thing. So he's got the precision, he's got the timing, he's got the dynamite right hand, some other good weapons on the feet, but he also moves you into the strikes as well, which is very good. And that's a footwork thing, right? And it's setting it up, it's feints, it's getting you to move certain ways. You're 10 steps ahead of your opponent, right? You're 2 steps ahead of your opponent, whatever you want to say. That's what Douglas Lima is doing a lot of the time when he's in there. He's got some very solid leg kicks, very strong kicks in general, and then good jiu-jitsu game and submission game when he gets you to the ground. Okay wrestling, I'll say. It's not great, but it's okay. And, when he gets you to the ground, he's got a nasty submission game, and he's got good jiu-jitsu. So Douglas Lima is a dangerous fighter for anybody. Last time out, Gegard Mousasi neutralized him better than we've mostly seen in his Bellator career, better than anybody. So, and of course, that was for the middleweight title. He went up a weight class. He's coming back down to welterweight, which he holds the belt at welterweight. But, for the most part, Douglas Lima, very, very solid. Now, his weaknesses, as I always say, everybody has some. His output and volume at times, probably my biggest problem with him. And he does have timing, and he's very good at countering and exploding and finding that shot and putting you into his combinations and putting you into that shot he wants to find with you. But at times, though, he is lacking that volume. He's lacking that output where you start to maybe lose rounds, lose moments of the fight. So he's got to find those moments, right? He's got to find those moments when you're not putting that volume together. But it's just one of things that hurts him. I don't want to say he hurts him all the time because, again, the timing, what he does do has worked for him, and he makes it work for him a lot of the times. But it can hurt you. It can hurt a lot of fighters. Another weakness for him, he can be taken down. If you time your shots right on him, any takedowns, you can take him down if you time it right. And then also, you can walk him back a bit to the cage. Make him fight his back off the cage. You can do that quite a bit sometimes if you use the correct footwork on Douglas Lima. So a lot of strengths, a few weaknesses. Overall, a very good fighter, and that's why this is going to be a title fight. Because then you go to Yaroslav Amosov and what he does. For the most part, uses some very good boxing combinations. He uses his jab in front of everything. He's got a good kicking game. He's got a good wrestling game. He's got good footwork. He doesn't rush things. He's got a good fight IQ for the most part. Yaroslav Amosov is one of the, and I said this going into his last fight out, last time he fought before he got the title shot here. I said that a lot of people have been introduced to Khabib, but not a lot of people have been introduced to Amosov. And before I say, I should preface that real quick that, and I said this last time too. I don't want people to think I'm saying he's Khabib. He's not Khabib, but I think of Amosov as some of these guys like that. Like we can even throw George St. Pierre out there, Kamaru Usman, a lot of guys that are very well rounded all around. You know what I mean? Guys that can wrestle, guys that can strike, guys that can do pretty much every, they can work every facet of their game and win a fight. That's what Yaroslav Amosov is to me. Again, he's not the great Khabib. He's not as great as Khabib. He's getting better every fight. I'm not saying that, but I think he's just overall well-rounded all around, and I don't think enough people have been introduced to him. He's an undefeated fighter, and it's going to get really tested here for sure. And will the O go at some point? For most fighters, it does. But I think he's very solid all around. He has a lot of great parts of his game. He times his uppercuts well. Again, he has a lot of strengths. Now, the weaknesses for him, that's where it gets a little tricky where, again, there's not a lot, but, for one, his cardio. We saw that last time out against Storley, where and that was a grinding fight. Trust me, a lot of guys would have been very tired in that fight. But there's a lot of fights where he is like that late in the fight, especially these 5-round fights that he's starting to now work himself towards in these title fights where you worry about that cardio late in fights for him that, if Douglas Lima gets this into the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th round, if he is using the wrestling and he is using all that, that's a grinding style of fight. Where's that gas tank at? And I have little issues with his gas tank there where he does get tired. He does get grinded down a little bit. So that's a weakness for me. Then overall, I just think the experience factor too. Not because Amosov hasn't had experience himself, but I think the resume of Amosov speaks very clear that he really hasn't fought anybody ever close to what Douglas Lima is experience-wise. You're seeing a lot of guys, even his last time out story, a lot of these guys, they're all at like 11 wins, 11 wins, 15 wins, 10 wins. These guys aren't 30-plus wins in their career. That's going to do something in this fight where Douglas Lima is not going to be some of these guys that go away. Douglas Lima will have that small adjustment if he needs it. Well, at least you think he would. He's going to have those things better than a lot of other opponents Amosov has faced. So you have to equate all that into the situation. I think that's a weakness for him coming into this, that he hasn't faced any, I don't want to say true killers because he has faced guys, even last time out, you're facing guys that have a lot of great parts of their game. But, we'll just say it. He hasn't faced any killers. And this is the first time I think ever he's really facing a true killer in Douglas Lima. So a lot going into this fight. It could be very interesting. I could see it going either way. I've seen some out there predicting Douglas Lima late rounds 3, 4, 5, knocks out Amosov. I don't hate that because Amosov, he does get tired, as I said, the cardio. But I'm going to pick Amosov here. I think the Amosov time has come in Bellator. I think that although he hasn't faced a killer like Douglas Lima before, I think his game all around is good enough to neutralize and do things that will make Douglas Lima uncomfortable. Like the output, the volume, working behind a jab, using your footwork, the Sambo background. I didn't even mention that in the strength there. I forgot to. From Amosov, he's got a Sambo background, the grappling. If he can get in these situations and use some wrestling and use his output, use his footwork, not get caught with a submission, not get caught with a big counter, not get timed that much. It is another weakness for him, too. I forgot to mention, too, for Amosov. Head movement sometimes can be a little off. So, maybe Lima explodes in. But if he avoids some of these big situations, I think Amosov is going to put together a good 1, 2, and maybe 3 rounds. 3 rounds of the first 3 rounds of this fight. I think he could be up 2 or 3 rounds going into that 4th or 5th round. The key will be, though, for him is that can he finish off those 4th and 5th rounds? Or can he find a finish before, which will be hard against Douglas Lima. I actually see this as probably a decision win for Amosov. But if he can, though, he's win those first few rounds, couple rounds, even if he's up 2-1, those championship rounds could be very crucial here. And that's where I do doubt him a little bit in this fight. But I think all the experience he's had, and I think he'll will himself a little bit. He's one of those guys where he doesn't seem mentally weak. I think he'll will himself, try to get through those last rounds. I think he'll grind out a round if he needs. And I also think he'll, even if he's up on the scorecards, just survive enough to win the fight. So I have Yaroslav Amosov winning this fight by unanimous decision or by a split decision. But it's going to be very close. And if Douglas Lima gets his hand raised, or he stops him, or he's able to out-decision him, I would not be surprised in the least, in the slightest, that this is going to be a very good fight, and I think it's being overlooked a little bit. I have a poll out there on Twitter. It's still up at Man in the Cage Pod about which main events you're most looking forward to this weekend, and why there's been some love on this Lima Amosov fight. Most of it's on Adesanya Vettori, which I understand. I'm not hating on that fight. I'm going to talk about it in a second, but I do think this fight's being overlooked just a little bit, but going to be a very good one. I have Amosov winning by decision in that one. All right, moving to the rest of this card a little bit quicker. The rest of this Bellator card, co-main event, which might be equally as good, if not better than the main event. You have Jason Jackson taking on Paul Daley. It's a 175-pound catch weight. Normally Jason Jackson down at 170, of course, but this one up at 175 because Paul Daley prefers to fight at 175. And in fact, Paul Daley at the media day the other day was joking around that he's the 175-pound champion and that all he needs is Scott Coker to do is make him a belt, create a belt for him at 175 pounds. So that's why they're fighting at a catch weight here. It should be a great fight. I mean, Paul Daley, all the power he brings into this matchup, every single matchup, right? His boxing acumen, walking forward, slinging bombs, using some footwork here and there. But then on the other side, Jason Jackson, also very, very well versed on the feet, uses some good straight punches. Henry Hooft and those guys down there at Stanford MMA, they always have their guys ready for to go in there and have a masterful striking performance. He uses his jab, he puts his combinations together. He's very smart on his feet. He'll use some wrestling, as we saw, even what was the last time or time before that, out a little bit if he needs to. He even had a hurt eye in that one. That's why he had to kind of adjust a little bit in his last fight out. Did Jason Jackson, and I asked him, and again, you can go to my social media and on YouTube as well. It's up there as well. But go to @Man in the Cage Pod. I have a Jason Jackson clip up there right now. I asked him, going into this fight against Paul Daley, is there anything that Stanford MMA and all those guys, Henry Hooft, all of them, have up their sleeve for a guy like Daley? Or are you just going to go in there and use your normal game plan? Because Daley's so powerful. I mean, he's got over 30 knockouts in his career. I just talk about Douglas Lima having over 30 wins in his career. Paul Daley has over 30 knockouts in his career. Had one the last time out. He was even hurt in that fight and came back and finished his own opponent. And Daley's got a good chin. I think that's underlooked a little bit. Can he get hurt? Yes. Can he get knocked out? Yes. But he's only got 2 stoppage losses in his career by knockout, almost his last time out, but he was able to bounce back off of that and, of course, find his own knockout. So Daley, very powerful, and I asked Jason Jackson about that at media day. Which one is it? Do you have something up your sleeve, or are you just going to go with the same game plan? And Jason Jackson said, the game plan basically that I have is I'm just willing to go in there and do anything. No one's going to stop me. I have a hurt eye in that last fight. It didn't matter. I was just going to keep moving forward. I do what it takes to win fights. And you like that to hear it from a young, hungry guy, especially like Jason Jackson, who he's ranked number 3 in the division right now. And a win here probably gets him the title shot, I want to say, or at least puts him up there right where he's at least a fight away. So he's very close if he gets it. And so that's why you like to hear those comments from a guy like Jason Jackson, the hunger, the determination from him, especially going into a matchup where he might need it here against Paul Daley. But my prediction in this fight, I'm going to take Jason Jackson by late stoppage. I think he's the overall better fighter. And overall, I think his striking, I think his wrestling, I think his grappling, and he showed some toughness last time out. So I don't doubt that if he gets in a little bit of trouble, unless Daley, which he could, put the perfect shot on his chin, put the perfect shot on him and knock him out, hurt him real bad. Unless it's a perfect shot like that or he's incredibly hurt, I think he'll fight through some fight through some tough spots in this fight. I think he'll eat some shots, fight through them, keep fighting, and I think overall his game's just going to be better. Daley, he walks forward and slings a lot of big bombs, but he is very hittable there. So I think if Jason Jackson takes his head off the line, uses some straight punches, as I think Henry Hooft and those guys will have him getting ready to do, I think he'll be able to catch Paul Daley. And I think he's going to be able to wear him down. And over the course of a fight, I think it's going to chip away at him. And it could be a decision, but I think come, late second round, third round, deep into the third round, I think Jason Jackson will be able to grind Paul Daley out of there or hit him with a big shot at that point where Paul Daley goes out and maybe even retires from MMA at that point and goes to boxing or somewhere. Maybe he goes to kickboxing like Alistair Overeem. I don't know. Maybe he'll do something like that. But I see Jason Jackson winning this fight. I think he's the better overall fighter. It's his time too. And to be honest with you, I actually think, most of the time, and Paul Daley wants that 175 pounds because they think he probably knows his power is even better at 175 pounds. So I'm not going to say that he didn't want a 175-pound fight here against Jason Jackson, but Jason Jackson's a bigger fighter. He's taller than Paul Daley. Now you're telling him that he can go to 175 pounds? Jason Jackson's going to be strong in this fight. I think he's going to, you don't have to cut as much weight, obviously. I think Jason Jackson's going to look really good in this spot. I think he's going to probably earn that title shot by getting that late stoppage over Paul Daley there. All right, next one up on the Bellator main card, you have Aaron Pico taking on Aiden Lee. Maybe one of the best fights of the night, could be fight of the night. One of the fan favorites or, people's main events, if you will. I think there's two on this card that could be the people's main events. This is one of them, Aaron Pico, Aiden Lee. I'm going to go with Pico by knockout here, though. But this is going to be such an explosive fight. Both these guys, Aiden Lee's pretty long. Daley even talked about that himself because he knows Aiden Lee from the UK, working a lot or near him. So, Aiden Lee's very long. He's very explosive. He's got a lot of dangerous weapons. He's got some fast hands. He's got some sharp hands. That's been Aaron Pico's nemesis in his career, but Aaron Pico is starting to blend everything so well together now. I think the guys over at Jackson Week have really had him, getting his wrestling going with that striking, pushing guys back, then using the wrestling. Using that striking once you got guys doubting about the takedown defense. And that's what he did his last time out, did Aaron Pico, and he's on a 3-fight winning streak now. The chin will always be a question mark. If he gets caught, yes, absolutely. He could get knocked out in this fight. That's why I don't think this one's going the distance no matter what. But I'm going to take Pico by knockout. I think he gets the job done. And maybe not even the prototypical knockout, but I could see him getting Aiden Lee to the ground, using his wrestling, and then chipping away with that ground and pound, where he either cuts up Aiden Lee or he stops him with a TKO shot just by raining the ground and pound down on him. So I'm going to go Aaron Pico on that one over Aiden Lee in that featherweight fight by knockout. But again, it could be one of the fights of the night for sure. Last one on the main card, Demarques Jackson taking on Mark Lemminger. That is a welterweight contest. I'm going to go Lemminger in this one. 2-fight losing streak for Lemminger, so you normally wouldn't maybe want to take a guy like that. By the way, Marquez also coming off of a loss, but you look at who Lemminger has lost to. One of them was Amosov. So Lemminger's, and the other one was Jaleel Willis. Those are not bad losses. Those are not bad Bellator losses. So I like Lemminger in this spot. I think he gets the job done. Demarques Jackson, he does train over at Stanford MMA like Jason Jackson. So, he's going to have that great camp behind him. He could have a great game plan here. But Lemminger, I think he's going to get off the schneid here. I think he's going to get back. I think he's going to find that W. Probably by decision. But I think he's going to get that job done, and then I think he's going to be able to move off of that one and forget about those two. We'll say, any loss is bad again, but those two losses that he can kind of cross off his list a little bit and say, all right, I'm getting past that a little bit. All right, running through the prelims real quick, just going to pick these all real quickly and go through order kind of how the bout list is, and it's a very good card. This is a very, very good Bellator 260 card. The feature prelim, you have Kyle Crutchmer taking on Levin Chokeli. I'm going to go Kyle Crutchmer on that one. I think he gets the job done. I think he gives Chokeli, I think I'm saying that right, his first loss of his career. He's 9-0, but I think Crutchmer is going to get the job done there. Taiwan Claxton, Justin Gonzalez. This one, the other people's main event that I'm really looking at in this spot. That both these guys had some, we'll say vitriol. We had some heat. Some animosity towards each other at the media day. You could see it at the face-off today when they were looking at each other. So Taiwan Claxton, Justin Gonzalez, going to be a very good one. Gonzalez comes in, he's 11-0. Taiwan Claxton 6-2, but he was so close in that last spot against J.J. Wilson. And J.J. Wilson's such a good fighter. So this is going to be a phenomenal fight. And I think there could be some explosive moments in this one. I think both guys are going to look for a finish, and there might be a finish. I'm going to go Justin Gonzalez here. And again, Taiwan Claxton's athletic guy. He trains at Team Elevation. He's going to have the cardio. He's talking about adjustments. I asked him about his adjustments going into this fight. He talked about staying more mentally engaged the whole round, more rounds when he's in there, and that was his problem the last time out against J.J. Wilson. I also don't like to, again, maybe he's telling the truth, and he adjusts that full time moving forward, but I don't like when I hear a guy saying that he needs to get more locked in. Like, I want to see it multiple times before I start believing in it a little bit more. So I'm going to go Justin Gonzalez here. I think he finds a way to get it done, but it's going to be a very good fight. And I could see Taiwan Claxton very well winning this fight against Justin Gonzalez. Should be a very good fight between those guys in the featherweight division. Next up, we have a lightweight contest. Nick Newell taking on Bobby King. I'll go Nick Newell here. He looks determined. He hasn't fought since 2019. He had a couple fights canceled last year. He was frustrated. Now he gets it here. He's a dad. He's got a lot of things going on in his life now. I like Nick Newell to get the job done here against Bobby King. Lucas Brennan against Matthew Skibicki. I'm going to go with Lucas Brennan by submission. I think he finds that finish that he couldn't find the last time out. Next up, Amanda Bell taking on Marina Makakina. I'm going to go with Amanda Bell in that one. She's 7-7 in her career, but I think she finds a way to get the job done. She's 2 inches taller than Makakina. I think she gets the job done there in the women's featherweight division. And then to start the day, round it all out here as I run through these real quick. Alex Polizzi taking on Gustavo Trujillo. I'm going to go with Alex Polizzi in that one in the light heavyweight contest to get the job done, maybe even by knockout in that one, find a stoppage. But that should be a very good one to open the card there. All right, that's Bellator 260. Very good card. I'm very excited for it. As I said, a lot of good fights and a lot of good fun ones that we can all look forward to watching coming up tonight. And again, follow me on Twitter at ManInTheCagePod. I'm going to have a bunch of coverage, post-fight stuff, asking a lot of the fighters' questions, be tweeting out some quotes, all that stuff, live tweeting with all the fights as well, so make sure you follow me. And again, like I said, I'm going to also get into a live video today at some point, some final thoughts, and talk about the UFC 263 weigh-in, some of what happens there, as there's a lot going on there. So I'll get all of that coming up to you later today on the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. All right, let's wrap it up, though, with the MMA portion of today's show, and then, again, some brief boxing thoughts. Well, actually, not wrapping it up, because then I'm going to have my guy Eddie Cross coming on with me to talk about UFC 263, but my version of my portion of the UFC 263 preview here. We'll start out with the main event. We have Israel Adesanya taking on Marvin Vettori, of course, for the middleweight championship. Listen, this is one of those fights that it has a lot of intrigue around it. And at first, I didn't think I would have a lot of intrigue about this fight. You know, you have Adesanya, who's already beaten Vettori. He's got the counterpunching ability. Adesanya, for a while, has looked untouchable. But you know what? Going into this fight now, you start really calculating things. And it's not like I didn't know any of things. Like, listen, again, I know Adesanya lost his last time out. But at first, you're thinking, all right, well, he lost. Yeah, but it was at light heavyweight. He went up a weight class, which is true. You can say that. I do think it's a legitimate excuse a little bit. But you go, hey, you know what? It was at light heavyweight. Whatever. He's already beaten Vettori. Everyone else he's been beaten at middleweight. Okay. But you look at it a little closer. I do think now you look at it and you go, the blueprint is officially there. Yes, Jan Blachowicz is a bigger man than Marvin Vettori, although Marvin Vettori very strong. So maybe Vettori can't lay on Adesanya a little bit more like Jan Blachowicz did when he got his wrestling and grappling going late in the fight and didn't get hurt by the punches that Adesanya was landing on him the way maybe he can hurt Vettori in this fight. But still, the blueprint's there, and he lost. So where's the mindset coming into this fight for Adesanya? Does he have any self-doubt? Does he have anything that he has between the ears going into this fight? Does that blueprint work for everybody? Because, again, everything, a lot of sports is about adjustments. Does he make adjustments here? Especially if Vettori comes out and he starts using takedowns in this fight. And, and then the other factor that, again, you start to look at a bit more is, the first fight that these guys fought, did it end in split decision? Yes, it did. I don't buy the Marvin Vettori, hey, I won thing, I was robbed or it was that close. I thought it was close, but I didn't think it was that close. Adesanya won the fight. But you start looking at it a little bit more, and you know what? I've always said it. I do think Vettori pushed Adesanya harder than anybody had pushed him at that point in his combat sports career in his life, outside of the kickboxing knockout that he had in his kickboxing career, Adesanya. So you add all this up, and I think this is a very tantalizing main event. I think this is a very good main event between Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori. Then they're at the press conference today. They're at all the media days. They're in the hotel lobby talking trash to each other. There's a lot there. I think this is going to be a very fun fight between the two men, and I think there's actually more intrigue in this fight, at least for me, and I think for some of the fans out there, than I thought there was going to be. Not that I didn't think there'd be any intrigue again, but I thought maybe there'd be a little bit less. But I think there's a lot actually going into this fight, and it's going to be a very good one. I'm excited to break it down right now. Again, I'll go through strengths, weaknesses, then give my prediction. But Israel Adesanya, of course, what he does well, great footwork, creative, fluid striking, uses his range really well with everything. That creative and fluid striking. Uses his range, uses that counter-punching ability, which I'll get more into in a second here. He's a really good kickboxer, good leg kicks, walks his opponent down most of when he wants to. And that might be a key for him too here. When Adesanya really wants to put the pedal down, his counter-punching so well and his striking is so lethal and so accurate, and his defense is so good and so hard to catch him, that he can start walking you down. He doesn't do it all the time, though, and that's the issue sometimes. But when he does, he can walk you down and use a lot of things. He's got free-flowing defense with everything, that he's just all of his reflexes, he's able to miss, dodge most shots, go, bring you into the matrix, if you will. When he's backed up, he does a great job striking with that counter-punching again. He shows off some solid angles, good kicks to the body, good counter-puncher in general. I can't say that enough. I mean, that's just, he does not overextend himself. He gets you to overextend yourself, and then he catches you. Again, he brings you into the matrix, we'll call it, where he brings you in, he gets you swinging, gets you overextending, and then he's right there for his counters, which he did to Robert Whittaker, and he's done it to a lot of people, even Paulo Costa. Very good. And the Paulo Costa fight, he actually put the pedal down a little bit more, but he's very good at landing those counters off his back foot, up against the cage, center of the octagon, doesn't matter. He's very good at it. Great vision of the pocket when he's striking, very important for him. And then, I'll say this, I do think he has improved his grappling and takedown defense for the most part. And again, I kind of cringe when I say that because we just saw the last time out, but I think the Adesanya we saw last time out even against a bigger man in Jan Blachowicz, a much bigger man actually, a light heavyweight. I don't know if the old Israel Adesanya would have, I think he might have got submitted. That's what I'm trying to say, versus Jan Blachowicz. I think it might have been a different outing for him. Instead, he was able to get to the bell at least. But, again, is he Mackenzie Dern? Is he Charles Oliveira? Is he Damian Maia? Is he any of those guys? Is he any great jiu-jitsu fighter? No, he's not. But, I think he's improved a little bit in those areas. Now, his weaknesses, real quick, he keeps his hands low, which he relies on that really free-flowing defense. Works for him most of the time. But when you rely on reflexes, all it takes is one simple mistake. All it takes is one simple error. And your reflexes slow down over time, right? Maybe you don't see something coming. Maybe something happens. So that can always be an issue for Israel Adesanya. Again, it works for him great most of the time, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's something to watch in this fight coming up. Wrestling, the takedown defense, and wrestling himself. He's not going to go shoot for takedowns. He's all striking all the time, which is fine again. But, if he needs to break out something, he doesn't have that thing in his back pocket necessarily to really break out. He likes his opponent to be first a lot, which the Yoel Romero fight, we saw how that ended. Very boring. Sometimes it leads to him actually not getting his offense like he needs. Like Jan Blachowicz had the perfect game plan of just be careful. If you eat a shot, he could eat the shot anyway because, Adesanya was coming up a weight class and he was a light heavyweight. But he also was very careful with his shots and was first and then didn't keep getting, he was first, Jan Blachowicz was, but then he didn't keep going. He didn't keep it going, though. He didn't overextend himself with multiple combinations sometimes. He was very good at just staying within himself. And then later in the fight, once Adesanya started slowing down and he knew it, and he was grinding him down a little bit, then he started opening up a little bit more. But again, that can be a weakness for Adesanya. And then right hands. He drops his left hand a little bit. Again, with that free-flowing defense, with the low guard, with the low hands that he uses to land great counters, it can also leave him very open at times. All right, so that is the strengths and weaknesses of Israel Adesanya. Strengths and weaknesses of Marvin Vettori, real quick, then my prediction. Vettori, I think he's a better boxer than meets the eye a little bit. Where you look at him and you think, this guy's not a very good boxer, but you watch his striking and it is pretty clean at times. He uses his jab into his straight right. He'll use a good amount of volume. He's very aggressive, pushing you forward. Sometimes almost too much on a straight line, which is one of his weaknesses. But he will push you forward. He does have some combinations. He will move his head a little bit. He'll stand in there. He's got a pretty solid chin. So his boxing, I think, better than most people think it is. Again, has a good amount of volume, solid wrestling, solid strength with all that wrestling, good jiu-jitsu when the fight does hit the mat for the most part. Mostly we've seen in his career, but getting to the weaknesses now, the gas tank is somewhat of an issue. The last time out against Kevin Holland, similar to Yaroslav Amosov actually a little bit, where he's well-rounded, but he's almost well-rounded to the point where he wears himself out in fights a little bit. So it's something to watch with the gas tank. Getting baited into exchanges. He's a tough guy. He can get emotional, Vettori can. So if Izzy's trying to get him into things, I could see him getting pulled into the matrix. He gets baited into those exchanges. And then we saw it the last time out against Kevin Holland. Sometimes the fight does hit the mat and he doesn't get his jiu-jitsu going. Other times we've seen him get it going, but other times we don't. Adesanya, not a great necessarily grappler. Could he get it going here? We'll see. Kevin Holland, last time out, a guy who has some stuff off his back. I'll say some stuff, and he's definitely got some power off his back because he knocked Jacare Souza off his back. But, we'll see what happens here. But again, Vettori, sometimes when he gets the fight to the mat, the jiu-jitsu's not all there all the time. So it'll be very interesting. And that leads to me in my prediction being very perplexed. And, going into today's show and looking and taping these fights coming up to UFC 263, I really thought for sure I was going to pick Israel Adesanya. And by the time the fights kick off on Saturday night, and by the time the main event, gets around, I might pick out Israel Adesanya again. But for right now, just something's telling me Marvin Vettori might have his day. And hear me out on this. And I know there's some others out there too believing maybe this is the time Vettori gets it done. But just looking at the first matchup, and again, people can change. There's going to be adjustments. I don't think Adesanya is the same fighter, but I don't think Vettori is the same fighter either. But looking at the first matchup, looking at these two guys head-to-head on stats, and stats will kill you sometimes, especially in combat sports, but looking at the stats, obviously it was a split decision, but the stats tell you that it was a split decision and that Vettori did push him. He landed 2 takedowns in the fight. And volume-wise, was he as effective striking? No. That's why he lost the fight, as he should have. But volume-wise and landing-wise, he was close to Adesanya in that matchup. So, if Vettori can crank up the volume a little bit, get Adesanya fighting off his back even more in this fight. He's got 5 rounds to do it now. I could see this being a greasy, grimy fight. And I don't believe right now, and you're coming off of I'm not going to say I don't believe that Adesanya can win a fight like that right now. I think he very well could, counterpunching, getting Vettori into these exchanges, stuffing a takedown here and there, especially early. He's had to be working on his takedown defense, so that's got to be there. But, these are things that, looking at him now, it sounds great, but maybe we get tomorrow and he's not stuffing those takedowns. So this is going to be a very close fight between both of these guys, but I see Vettori getting the split decision. I hate to say it. I hate to say it because it's one of those picks where I know coming up Saturday night it's probably going to look foolish with like Adesanya land some Matrix level, land some massive knockout over Marvin Vettori and makes, absolutely just walks him down and pieces him up. Because Adesanya has been known to do that in his career where he'll have bad performances and then the next fight he's great. And then the next performance, he's like so-so, even if he wins. And then the next performance, he's great. Look at the Paulo Costa fight. After the Yoel Romero fight, he's boring. He didn't go out there and do it. What does he do? He goes out there, and he wanted to shut him up too, but he goes out there and he pushes the pedal a little bit more. He stayed smart, and he pieced him up, and he knocked him out. I could see something similar here after a bad performance again against Jan Blachowicz. But I think the blueprint's there now. I think the blueprint is take him down, lay on him. I mean, that's not a very friendly thing. Most fight fans won't want to hear that, but I think that'll be the game plan now a little bit of walk him down, wrestle him and lay on him a little bit, and then try to get your jiu-jitsu going. If Vettori's a little slicker than Jan, if he's a little lighter, maybe he is able to do that, especially if it's early on in the fight. So I'm going to go Vettori by split decision here. Again, I might change my mind by Saturday or Saturday night. I try not to do that, so I'll probably just stick with it. But, I think that there's enough there to think that Vettori can win this fight. The numbers, how the first fight went, the blueprint being there, and another big problem I've had with Adesanya, and I talked about this after the Jan Blachowicz fight, he's become so obsessed with the same counter since the Robert Whittaker fight. And he did a little bit in the Paulo Costa fight, but he walked him down a little bit, but he did it again in the Jan fight, where when he's in trouble and he doesn't know, he can't find the knockout, and he gets in a certain state of mind, he tries to get counterpunching, he just tries to go back to those pullback punches, where he tries to get you in there and make you miss, and then overextend, and then hit you with that counter like he did Robert Whittaker. But he's been going to that well too many times now. I don't like to see that. I want to see a fighter like Adesanya, and this would be my challenge to him, And my game plan, if I was him, what the key for him should be is walk Vettori down, keep him on his back foot so he can't take you down, use your jab, and walk him down and put the pressure on, put some straight punches on him, use your kicks, a lot more kicks. And then, or maybe you don't want to get taken down, obviously, so be careful. Maybe not a ton of kicks, but walk him down, do that. And then, when Vettori does get frustrated or he's losing the fight or he's getting pieced up, he's going to come forward, and then you can counter on him. If I was Adesanya, that's what I'd be looking to do. But I don't have any confidence that necessarily that's what he's going to do in this fight. He might get taken down. He might be frustrated off his back foot just trying to throw those pullback punches again, those step back to shoulder roll punches. So I'm going to go with Vettori here. Not overly confident in it, but it's going to be a very good fight. I think it's going to be very good. I think something shocking is going to happen. Maybe if Adesanya wins by decision, it's not shocking. I think it's going to be a good fight overall, but I could see either Vettori pulling the upset here, or I could see like a massive knockout from Adesanya, something like that. Or maybe even Vettori puts Adesanya away with a submission or something. I think something crazy is going to happen this fight. I'm very excited for that one. All right, moving along here. Co-main event, Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno for the Flyweight Championship. Barn Burner Part 2, here we go, guys. Very good fight. Was great the first time around. Excited to see something similar here, and it has all the ingredients to do so. And I think I talked about this on episode 93 with Tom Albano about what I see happening in this fight and how this fight does have all the ingredients to be a fantastic fight. What does Figueiredo possess, and what does he not possess? All right, Figueiredo possesses a ton of power. All right, check. He doesn't possess a ton of volume. Okay, and then he possesses a lot of flash submissions. Overall, a fun, exciting fighter. Now, he finds ways that's simplifying things, obviously. Figueiredo finds ways to put you in the crosshairs, line up those big shots. He finds ways to get you to the ground. He's very good at snatching your neck, getting those flash submissions. So it's not as just simple as that, but that's who he is, essentially. Okay, what is Brandon Moreno? Great chin. Very good boxing as far as volume goes. Kind of clean, technical sometimes with his boxing. Has enough get-up game, has enough ground game where he doesn't get flash submitted, of course, here. All of those are elements that really interact well with each other, where this is going to be another close fight, and going into it, it looks like a close fight. And I think it's going to come down to the smallest of adjustments. I tweeted that out earlier this week. All rematches. Fights in general, in the middle of the fight, you want to make an adjustment, right? But all rematches come down to adjustments. But I think even more so for this time around, Figueiredo versus Moreno, I think it's going to be about a small adjustment. Whichever fighter, Moreno or Figueiredo, makes that smallest of small adjustments, they're going to win the fight. Who I think is going to do that, I think it's going to be Deiveson Figueiredo. I think he makes the smallest of small adjustments, and I think he puts actually Moreno out in this fight. And this was an unpopular opinion too after Figueiredo Moreno won. And that's why I'm going to say, if you're out there yelling, what do you mean he's going to put him away the chin? Hold on for a second. And I said this after the first fight. Figueiredo, he had some moments in that fight against Moreno where he was putting some nasty shots on him. Now, was Moreno getting, was he getting stanky legged? Was he wobbling everywhere? Was he going to the mat? Was he desperately hurt? And from appearance, no, he wasn't. But there were times where he was hurt, though. And Figueiredo was putting nasty shots on him. And the matter of the fact is, if you have enough nasty shots put on you, you will eventually be TKO'd either by the ref coming in, forcing to stop it from the beating, or your body's going to shut down, right? That's what happened to Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. I think something similar could happen here, and I'm surprised it didn't happen the first time. The issue was with Figueiredo. And again, this is why small is small adjustments. If Moreno does something small here, comes out with something different here and there for Figueiredo, yes, he could capture the gold. He could get that strap easily. But I think Figueiredo, if he just moves a couple things here and there, I think he finds that knockout. I think he could have found it in the first fight as well. There was a couple times where he hit him with big shots, and then for Figueiredo, instead of stalking him and then putting a jab into a straight punch, or putting together a right hook or an uppercut, or a left hook or an up, instead of putting together something big like that, a knee, he would go crowd himself. He'd go try for elbow strikes. It seemed like sometimes, and it's all great, and the elbows are great if you land them, but he couldn't find him. And at times, instead of being able to follow up on a hurt Moreno a little bit, he smothered himself, and Moreno grabbed him for those desperation takedowns. Got in the clinch, got him down to the ground, desperation takedown, able to pop back up to his feet. All right, I'm back together again. I think this time if he follows him, though, doesn't go for any dumb strikes, puts together things like I think he can put away Brandon Moreno in this fight. But it's going to be a very good one. Again, it's going to be on small adjustments, but I think Figueiredo puts him away. I'm going to go round 2 or 3 knockout for Deiveson Figueiredo. The longer this fight goes, and I said it the first time around too, obviously, the longer this fight goes, the better it is for Moreno. If you're Moreno, you're just going out there and you're trying to put volume on volume. Do not move your head if you can. You've got the chin to absorb a bunch of big shots, obviously. You can probably go 5 rounds as long as you don't get pieced up too badly here and there. So I think for Moreno, that's got to be his game plan. And again, I'm going to be shocked. This is going to be a great fight. This is going to be a phenomenal fight. I'm very excited for that one coming up on UFC 263. All right, the rest of this card, Nate Diaz, Leon Edwards. Biggest question. Well, one of the bigger questions on the card for me, actually, is what Nate Diaz are we going to get? He's 1-1, and I don't want to get this wrong, so I'll pull it up. But, I don't want to get, like I said, I'll pull this up in a second. I don't want to get it wrong, but Nate Diaz is 1-1, I believe, in his last, since 2018, 2019. So, what, 2 or 3 years here? 4 years, whatever that is. I'm a bad at math, sorry. 2 or 3, it's also late right now. 2 or 3, 4 years, whatever it's been, he's 1-1. Going back to 2016, you can even go back even further. I can do the math there a little bit better. 5 years, getting on 6 years now. At the end of this year, he's 2-2. So he's had 4 fights since 2016. He's won 2 of them. He's lost 2 of them. Now, one of them was to Conor McGregor, one of the wins. One of the losses was to Conor McGregor. One of those losses was to Jorge Masvidal. You can go through these wins and losses. These are killers, yes, but he hasn't been very active. And at times he's looked poor. I mean, the Masvidal fight, he looked super soft in that fight. Looked like a shell of his former self. Masvidal went out there and beat him up. He looked like the stronger fighter. And I worry about that again for him here against Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is a very strong fighter. He's physical. He's got a great technical striking. He's got a great game plan all around. He's not going to just gas himself out necessarily like some will against Nate Diaz because of his chin, He's also not going to necessarily make too many mistakes where Diaz can capitalize on the ground in this fight, especially at this point in Diaz's career. So what Diaz are we going to get? Are we going to get the Conor McGregor 1 Diaz, or are we going to get the Jorge Masvidal Diaz? I think you maybe even best case scenario for Nate Diaz, and he could make me eat my words here, we get something somewhere in between. But I think we're going to get more of the Jorge Masvidal Nate Diaz here, and I think he gets pieced up by Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards either gets a unanimous decision or he gets a late stoppage on him. I think this is Leon Edwards all the way, and I think Leon Edwards, especially if he puts him away, but a win in general, I think should get him a title fight. I think he should put him ahead of Colby Covington and get a title shot against Kamaru Usman. And Nate Diaz, if he wins, heck, if he pulls off the upset, great for you. You're talking about maybe 2 fights left in your career if you're Nate Diaz at that point. You can fight for the title, and then you could fight Conor McGregor for that trilogy fight, and then probably walk off, obviously, because he's not very active right now, unless he wants to keep fighting and doing grappling tournaments, right? But I see that happening here in this fight. I do think Leon Edwards wins that one. All right, the rest of the main card, Damian Maia taking on Belal Muhammad. Since I'm going long here, I got my guests coming up. I'm going to go quickly through these a little bit more, but Maia Muhammad, I'm going to go Muhammad by unanimous decision. He's got to be careful. If he gets taken down, Damian Maia is so quick on the ground. But Damian Maia, we're seeing these older jiu-jitsu fighters like Jacare Souza. Now, you get older, you have some issues. We saw that with Maia last time out. He had issues against Herbert Burns. I think the same thing happens here. No, it was Herbert Burns. Gilbert Burns. I think he has the same issue here against Belal Muhammad. I don't think he gets put away. Muhammad's not necessarily a finisher, but Muhammad's got good cardio. He stays on you. His pace he pushes. The volume he puts on you, very difficult to deal with. Damian Maia is going to have to do something crazy in this fight, submission-wise, to get the win. I think Muhammad wins by unanimous decision. And then Paul Craig versus Jamal Hill. This one going to be also very interesting that I don't think it's going to go very far. And I'm actually going to ask Eddie Cross coming up from 104.9 The Horn when I bring him on, over or under 1.5 rounds, because I think this might go under 1.5 rounds. I have Hill winning by knockout in this one. I think he gets the job done. I think he puts away Paul Craig, but Paul Craig's been known to make things sticky, right? Make things interesting. He's just one of those guys. So he's very good off his back as Paul Craig. So this could be a very, very, very good fight. It is going to be a very good fight, and it's going to have a lot of... The number one prediction here, again, as I've said with other fights, is that violence, right? This is going to be a very violence-based fight, and somebody's probably going out. I'm going to go with Hill by knockout. But it would not surprise me if Paul Craig, who's constantly developing on his feet, constantly developing striking, finds a way to either get on his back and pull off another triangle miraculously, or if he's able to put his own big bombs together and put Hill out of there. Should be a very good one. And both these guys hate each other, so they're going to come forward on each other and throw some massive bombs there. All right, that's the UFC 263 main card. Very good top to bottom. Rest of this one real quick again. I'm going to run through these because there's so freaking many of them. Drew Dober, Brad Riddell. I'm going to go Drew Dober in that one. I think he gets the win. Brad Riddell, very hittable. Dober, very good hands, very good boxing. We're going to go Dober there. Eric Anders taking on Darren Stewart. This one's interesting because Anders is one of those guys where, man, you always think he's going to get the W, or you think he's going to get the W, and then he's just that one thing missing from his game. Darren Stewart, a little bit of the same thing. I'll say Eric Anders is able to grind out a win here, but I've seen too many Eric Anders fights where he just pushes guys against the cage in that clinch, tries to use his physicality. Darren Stewart's a very strong guy himself. You're not going to be able to do that. This could become a striking battle. It would not surprise me if Darren Stewart won, but I'll go Eric Anders. I think he finds maybe a split decision win here over Darren Stewart. Lauren Murphy, Joanne Calderwood. This fight should be on the main card, in my opinion. This is a title eliminator. This is a flyweight title eliminator here, where I think whoever wins this one should face Valentina Shevchenko next. Calderwood should have already had that shot. She lost it because she had to fight and get paid. Lauren Murphy, she wants the title shot really bad. Someone's going to win, and somebody's going to get the title shot next. I'm going to say it's Calderwood. I think she's paid her dues, obviously, more than most have. She had the title shot in her hand, and she lost it. I think she's going to find it here, though. Lauren Murphy, nothing against her, but when I've watched her fight, there's just, again, nothing really sensational about her game. And Calderwood, just her striking, when she's hungry, when she's putting everything together, I think I don't know, Calderwood pressure-wise, because we saw against Jennifer Maia, she seemed a little hesitant, a little scared to lose that fight. But I don't think, so maybe pressure-wise, she knows this is a title eliminator, comes out, doesn't fight the way she normally does. But I'm going to go Calderwood here. I think she gets the win over Lauren Murphy in that one. So I'll say Dober by knockout. I'll say Anders by decision. I'll say Joanne Calderwood. Even though I think she might be able to put her away, we'll say by decision in that one as well. Movsar Evelev taking on Hakeem Dawodu. We're going to go with Evelev in that one. I like Evelev a lot. He's a very, very good fighter. But Dawodu, I mean, don't forget this man. His only loss is to Arnold Allen. This guy is very good, Dawodu. He's very, very talented. And to have a plus 200 next to his name, he's got to feel somewhat disrespected in this fight. But, these Russians like Evelev, so good at getting those takedowns, so good at spamming him and getting him over and over again. And Evelev, he's got some good striking too. You have to be impressed with him. So I'm going to go Evelev in that one against Dawodu. Prelims, you have Pani Kanziad taking on Alexis Davis. I'm going to go Kanziad in that one. Matt Frivola taking on LFA, 109 winner Terrence McKinney. I like McKinney a lot. I think he's got a bright future, at least a solid fighter in his future if he could put everything together. So short notice, though. Can he put away Frivola? You know what? I'll pick the dog pick here. Don't run to your bookies and make this one, because Frivola's an exciting fighter. He's got a lot of great skills. I think he could get the job done here, but I'm going to go Terrence McKinney. I think Frivola's had some long layoffs here. There's something always about Frivola that he seems like he's also a guy where if he really, really put things together, if he really, really had a streak where he really was healthy and put a bunch of fights together, maybe he could really make a run at the division, but he hasn't yet. So I'm going to go Terrence McKinney. He lost in the Contender Series. It was to Sean Woodson, though. Sean Woodson's somewhat a gifted finisher. I think McKinney's learned a little bit. We'll see. I think it's a close fight. I don't think it's I'll go Terrence McKinney here. I'll go Terrence McKinney, what the heck, against Matt Frivola in that one. All right, next up, Chase Hooper taking on Steven Peterson. This one should be fun. Where's Chase Hooper striking at? Because he's just getting pieced up every single fight until he finds some sort of submission, lower half submission or something he can in every fight. Luckily for him here, he's facing a guy who he's going to have a reach advantage on, he's going to have a height advantage on, and although you can't judge by records usually, you don't want to, wiki cap a fight here. And again, I'm not saying Steven Peterson can't win this fight, but this feels like maybe a one where it's like, hey, Steven Peterson's got some skills, but hey, kid, hopefully you've improved a little bit more. Go find the submission and keep improving. I think it could be one of these fights against Steven Peterson here. I'm going to go Chase Hooper, though. I think he's got to... We'll see. It's always so sticky with him. Chase Hooper's been losing fights until he's not anymore. I could see that happening again here against Steven Peterson, where he's getting pieced up and then all of a sudden he finds a submission. I'll go Chase Hooper, though. I bet against him last time. I picked against him last time. I'll go Chase Hooper this time, though, around in that one. The final two fights the first two fights to open up tonight, you have Fares Ziam taking on Luigi Venderamini. I will go with Ziam in this one. I think Ziam gets the job done. Could be a prime close fight candidate there, though. Maybe one of those early close grinded out fights that are very good that get the fans going early. And then the fight to open up the night. You gotta love it. Heavyweight division. Carlos Felipe taking on Jake Collier. Collier just looking, he's so massive. It's so interesting to see that he's been in other weight divisions and now he's come up to heavyweight. I'll go Carlos Felipe here. I just can't. Even though Collier he keeps doing it, and I think he's not totally done in his career. I can't pick a guy who's went up weight classes like that. I just can't do that. I think that Felipe, although he's tripped up, once in his career recently, I do think Carlos Felipe, I think this is his fight, though, against Jake Collier. I think this is a good fight for him. He's going to have a little bit of a reach disadvantage here, but I think he's the natural heavyweight, though. So is he the bigger fighter? Is he the smaller fighter? I don't know. I'm going to go with Carlos Felipe in this one to start up UFC 263. We'll say by knockout. I do think this is one that, again, big heavyweights, not a shock. I think you could see a knockout in that one between Felipe and Jake Collier there. But that's UFC 263. Very good card. I'm very excited about it and excited to watch that coming up Saturday night. Watch all the MMA coming up all of this weekend. And again, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Man of the Cage Pod for all of that coverage. All right, real quick boxing, and then I'll get to my guy Eddie Cross, who's going to join me from 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas. But boxing, real quick, we do have a card coming up Saturday night. I wanted to touch on it so boxing fans out there, you didn't feel left out this weekend because we do have Shakur Stevenson back in action. Shakur Stevenson coming in, undefeated fighter, of course. Very talented, very promising. I'm a big Shakur Stevenson fan. I love watching him step in the ring. I'm gonna have it up right next to UFC 263 when he faces off with Jeremiah Nakathila. Nakathila, good record on paper, and I think he could present some things here for Stevenson to have to push for the win a little bit more, but at the end of the day, it's going to be Shakur Stevenson. He's going to get the win, probably by a late knockout. I'm going to say a late stoppage. But it could be a decision again as well. Stevenson's not the most powerful guy in the world. He doesn't have the biggest punching power in the world, similar to maybe even a Devin Haney a little bit. But I do think Shakur Stevenson gets the win. I think maybe a late stoppage in this one, though. I think he does if he possesses the tools, and I think he wants to do that because he wants a big fight coming up. I think he'll find it here again in this fight coming up Saturday night. So I'm going to go Shakur Stevenson by either late stoppage or decision in that one. And then there's some other great fights on the card. You have Xander Zayas, young phenom, a great kid. He's also on that card. I think Zayas is going to get another win. Maybe an upset coming from Pedraza. So, and of course, I said I'll go Zayas. And then I'll have some other picks for you guys too. I've just been going so deep in these MMA cards. I'm going to have some more boxing picks for you guys too coming up Saturday night. But that's all the cards coming up Friday, Saturday. Whew, that was a lot. I know I had to get it out there, but hopefully you enjoyed the preview there, my preview top to bottom. Fights coming up tonight, fights coming up Saturday night. So excited for it. Again, follow me on Twitter at Man in the Cage Pod for all the coverage. UFC 4 simulations coming out, more live videos coming out. Have some more thoughts on Bellator 260. A ton of stuff still coming up this weekend, so keep it locked right here on the Man in the Cage podcast, including coming up next, one of my favorite people in all of combat sports. I have Eddie Cross from 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas, jumping on with me. I had a chance one time to guest co-host with Eddie on the show over there in Austin, Texas. Had a lot of fun on that one, and I'm glad I can bring Eddie on for the first time here onto the Man in the Cage podcast. So without further ado, we're going to head out now via Zoom. Welcome my guy Eddie Cross onto the Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports podcast. Wow, what a treat right now. I'm very excited to be joined via Zoom by Eddie Cross from 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas. Eddie, a co-host alongside Jordan Wahlberger on the most dangerous show in Texas, Fight Night Radio. You can follow Eddie on Twitter at Eddie Experience. It's X instead of the E in the Experience. You can also follow Eddie's show Fight Night on Twitter at Fight Night ATX. They do shows every Wednesday night over on 104.9 The Horn. So go check those guys out. Eddie, how you feeling ahead of UFC 263? And then also, I wanted to say, with you guys being the most dangerous show in Texas, if you guys are the Derek Lewis of the heavyweight division, can I at least be like a Marcin Tybura of the heavyweight division as far as a dangerous show in Texas?
Oh, man. Well, first, thanks for having me, Jeff. And, yeah, I think we could put you up a little higher than that, maybe like a Cyril Gahn.
Okay, I like
maybe
that.
Maybe a Jairzinho Rosenstruck.
See, I was gonna say Rosenstrike, but I didn't want to toot my horn too much there. You know what I mean? So I like that though. I like the Rosenstrike in the Serial Gain comparison there. I love that. And again, Eddie, go follow him on Twitter at Eddie Experience X without the experience, with the X instead of the E there in experience. You do get the experience with Eddie every time you tune into 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas. Eddie, a lot.
I just say one E in the middle. One E in the middle.
One E in the middle too. Sorry, I listen to your Fight Night show all the time, and I hear you say that, but I always forget the extra E in the middle there. So yes, at Eddie Experience, the X instead of the E in the beginning, and then an extra E in the middle. And go check him out again on Twitter there, and check out the guys over on Fight Night Radio on Twitter at Fight Night ATX. Eddie, a lot to get into today, man. UFC 263 coming up on Saturday, just about a day or so away from that now. Of course, the main event, we get Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori. What do you think are the keys for both of these guys going into the fight? And then if you want to kind of lump that in with your prediction today, you can. But yeah, I mean, what are the keys, do you think, for Marvin Vettori in Israel Adesanya, and how do you see this fight playing out coming up on Saturday night?
Well, I hate to say it's your standard striker versus grappler matchup, but those pretty much are the keys to this fight. Adesanya's shown he's got world-class stand-up, and he can stand with anyone. Although he does tend to get hit a little too much for my taste, as Kelvin Gastelum. And Vettori, after watching the Blachowicz fight, he's got to be salivating to get the takedown and see if he can hold Adesanya down for 5 rounds. So those are pretty much the main things. Vettori's got to show he's got the wrestling, because if he doesn't, Adesanya's going to outstrike him. And Adesanya's got to show that he can keep it on his feet. If he doesn't, Vettori, he wants to take it down immediately and keep him there for 25 minutes. But if you think Adesanya's done anything besides drill takedown defense in the last few months, you're crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's got to be what the blueprint's there now. And that's why there is so much intrigue going into this fight for me. Number one, you had the Vettori fight the first time around between these two where it was a split decision. Vettori's out there saying, hey, I beat you, which I don't think he actually beat him, but, he pushed him a little bit. So you have that out there. Then you have Adesanya, who, albeit he went up a weight class, did lose his last time out. And as you said there, the blueprint is there for Marvin Vettori, and he has to be, you would think, just working on all that takedown defense this whole time he's been away since that Jan Blachowicz fight in the light heavyweight division. So that has to be what he's working on coming into this fight. And, having said that, and having you said that there, do you think Adesanya will be able to correct some of those things here? And do you think he beats Vettori, or do you think Vettori is able to wear his Dolce & Gabbana, whatever his sponsorship now is? Is he gonna celebrate with his Dolce & Gabbana after Saturday night at UFC 263? Is that what you think is going to happen?
It's funny. Both these guys are coming in with a big chip on their shoulders, but I think the chip on Adesanya's shoulder is a little bit bigger at this moment, just because of what he just went through. So that, and there were weight classes for a reason.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Vettori has the size and strength to hold him down like Blachowicz did. So I am going to go with Adesanya retaining. I'm not sure he'll get the knockout, but I think he's going to retain. And Vettori's going to get him down a couple times, but with his quickness and the size difference that he won't be dealing with, I think Adesanya will be able to manage to get himself back up.
Yeah, we could definitely see that happening. And, the last time Vettori won, obviously, he beat Kevin Holland, which, take Kevin Holland for what he is right now. But he beat Kevin Holland, but he spammed takedowns the whole time. He really didn't do much with those takedowns. He did just enough to just grind out the fight, which a W is a W. It gets him into the title fight here, although Dana White's out there saying that they offering this fight to Robert Whittaker and he wouldn't take it right away. So maybe this would have been a Whittaker Adesanya spot again. But nonetheless, Vettori able to grind out that last W, gets into this fight with Adesanya. But still, in that matchup, it wasn't like Vettori was using a ton of great jiu-jitsu there, although we have seen in the past a little bit, but not in that last fight. So yeah, it'll be tough here. We'll see Adesanya. He's had to be drilling those get-ups in that takedown defense to see if he can try to stay on his feet and use all that counter-striking against Marvin Vettori here. So you're picking Israel Adesanya. Let me ask you one more on the main event here, Eddie, and then we'll get to the co-main event, work our way down just the main card here. But who do you think has the most pressure on them in this fight? Do you think it's Adesanya coming off of a loss, or do you think it is on Vettori, because who knows when he's going to get another title shot? Who do you think the most pressure is on in this matchup at UFC 263?
I'm going to have to say the pressure's on Adesanya. Yeah. Not only because he just lost, but he's been running his mouth for like 3 years now. And you run your mouth that much about how great you are and how you're going to jump up 3 weight classes, and then you get it shut down by the guy that you thought was the easy fight at light heavyweight. You got a lot to prove now, son. You know, as soon as, and I like Adesanya, but as soon as John Jones left, that's when he decided to make the jump to light heavyweight. Okay. He was saying, oh, give me a year, give me 2 years. But as soon as John Jones left, boom. It's like, oh, I see a beatable light heavyweight champion. Kind of like what GSP did with Michael Bisping. He thought he saw a shot. He took it. Now, props to him for moving up because there's still a size difference. But he kind of took what's called the easy way out, what he thought was anyway.
Yeah, he did.
So now that Blachowicz sent him back down with his tail between his legs, you haven't heard much from him until this week.
No.
So I think the pressure's on Adesanya to back up all that talking he's been doing if he ever wants one of those huge money fights again, and basically just to back up, put himself back where he thinks he should be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you there. And that's why the pressure is on Adesanya here. And if he loses again, because we've seen some boring Adesanya matchups, and if he wins, he wins. Maybe a boring matchup would still hurt him a little bit here, but he needs the win badly, obviously. If he wins, then he kind of rights the ship a little bit. And then maybe you could say in the future, maybe you try light heavyweight again at some point, although I don't want to see that right now, but maybe he would. But he needs the W here, because if he loses and that blueprint of what Jan Blachowicz did works for Marvin Vettori, then, or worst case, let's say Marvin Vettori outstrikes him, which I don't think that would happen, given the two skill sets, but that would be worst case for Israel Adesanya. So yeah, the pressure's all on him here, and Marvin Vettori, he's riding on a little bit of a free ticket here. Again, all the comments about Robert Whittaker, maybe he gets a title shot down the line again at some point here, but yeah, definitely the pressure mostly on Israel Adesanya. I agree with you, Eddie, there. Co-main event, we have Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno. Rematch from last year's fight of the night, fight of the year, whatever you want to call it, or at least one of the fights of the year. Absolutely a barn burner first time around. We get to see it a second time around here. What adjustments do you want to see made from both of these fighters, Figueiredo and Moreno? And then who do you see making those adjustments and being able to walk away with that flyweight strap coming up Saturday night at UFC 263?
I think the main adjustments for both of them is more defense.
Yeah.
Good Lord. I mean, it was a great fight last time, but dude, get out of the way.
Yeah, move your head. Yeah.
And it's funny, like, as much as I'd like to say Assassin Baby, and as much as I like Brandon Moreno, I think this is Figueiredo's fight to lose. And I didn't even realize until this week how much he had been through before the last fight. Like, I knew he took it on a quick turnaround, kind of stayed in Vegas, got the big bonus and all that. But I didn't realize how sick he was until this week. And being able to put on that kind of performance with that sickness, and he still would have won without the low blow. So I got to say, this is his fight to lose. And he might get the KO if things are actually up to snuff this time. I don't know how he feels. I haven't heard any reports this week, but then again, I hadn't heard him last time either. So
yeah,
I think this is Figueiredo's to lose.
I agree. And I came out of that last fight the last time around, and I think some people thought I was crazy, but I went back and rewatched it, and I said similar things to what you're saying right now, that I feel like if Figueiredo made some small adjustments in the fight, I actually think he might have been able to put away Brandon Moreno. Moreno's got a great chin. It's not going to take one shot, but there was a couple times where Figueiredo, some will argue this, not that he, really super rocked, Moreno, and Moreno went down, but there was a couple times you could tell he hurt him a little bit. But instead of going, being patient and putting together combinations and working for that finish, Figueiredo would get a little too impatient, and then he'd go throw like random elbow strikes, some, stuff that just didn't really, I felt like he was trying to go for highlight reel knockouts when he didn't need to be. He just needed to go for that finish, put some combinations together, put some punches together on him. So I agree with you. I think Figueiredo this time around, it could be a knockout for him. Put away Brandon Moreno and get that flyweight strap. It should be a great one between him and Moreno. So you're picking Figueiredo. And speaking of Figueiredo here, my last question about this co-main event, and kind of a broad one, but I was thinking about this today because I see Henry Cejudo still tweeting out there. In your opinion, Eddie, out of Henry Cejudo, and we'll say Figueiredo, and maybe you can even throw Brandon Moreno in there in the scrap that they had last year. But out of Cejudo and Figueiredo, who would you say is responsible for saving the flyweight division in the UFC? Because Cejudo says he saved it, but I don't know. Figueiredo's got a case, I think, that he may have saved it fully. He may have fully saved the future of the flyweight division here.
I hate to agree with the cringe master, but as horrible as his act was, it was so much more than what DJ ever did, publicity-wise, that, yeah, I think he did save it. Now, leaving the way he did not help any. Yeah. So Figueiredo basically had to resave it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point there. Yeah, he did have to resave it. Yeah.
Remember, TJ Dillashaw still thought that he was being sent there to finish off the flyweight division.
That's true.
So they still had a little struggle to go.
They did have a little. Yeah,
it's weird how he worked so hard to get to where he was, to do what he did, and then to just leave like that. It makes no sense to me. So he almost re-killed it by leaving. So Figueiredo did kind of resave it.
I would agree.
Let's admit, they put on a much more him and Moreno put on a much more exciting fight than we've seen from the flyweight since probably an early DJ fight. I
would agree. I would definitely agree. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put. I didn't look at it like that. That Cejudo may have, because of course he did a lot for the division. When I asked that question, I know Cejudo did a lot, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to look at that way. That Cejudo saved it and then he left. Left a bunch of, that division, especially bare a little bit, and then Figueiredo had to save it, especially with that, maybe even that fight late last year with Brandon Moreno. That was such an amazing fight. Yeah, both guys you could credit a little bit with saving that flyweight division. He is Eddie Cross. Again, he's from Fight Night Radio, 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas. Catch those guys every Wednesday night. We'll move down this card a little bit more here now, Eddie. Next up, we have Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. Prediction wise here, I think it's pretty simple, Eddie, and it's which Nate Diaz is going to show up. Do we get the kind of flabby, soft Jorge Masvidal Nate Diaz, or do we get the Conor McGregor 1 versus Nate Diaz in this fight against Leon Edwards?
This fight hurts my heart, just because I call it the fight that Houston lost, because I was going to see that fight in person.
I was too. Yep.
Yeah, and that arena was so loud. And if you think about how loud it would have been when Nate Diaz came out, we would be deaf right now.
We would be.
And I'm not even that huge a Nate Diaz fan, but I'm a fan of, exciting moments. And he would have provided a huge one for Houston. So his injury, pulling off the Houston card, really hurt. But what didn't hurt is the fact that Leon Edwards is probably going to win this fight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would have been a great pop for him when he came out, but the result would have been upsetting for most people.
Yeah, I think it would be too, because it's just, Diaz, you look at his record. I mean, he talks a big game. I know he beat Conor McGregor once. I know he's beaten a lot of other guys. So his reputation, his career has kind of vaulted him up no matter what. He comes out of retirement, or he comes out of years off of not fighting and being, away from the gym even, and he can just snap his fingers and get into a main card spot. And they're saying if he wins here, he could get a Kamaru Usman title shot, all those things here. I know it's because of the legacy. I don't have a huge issue with it, but frankly, Nate Diaz you look at, he's 1-1 in the last, 2, 3, 4 years here. I mean, going back to 2016, he's 2-2. I mean, he hasn't been that active. He hasn't been winning every single fight, again, albeit all killers. But, it's not like Nate Diaz has been lighting the world on fire. So you think here, this is Leon Edwards' time to shine. I'm not one to put it past Nate Diaz to use the chin, use the jiu-jitsu, use the boxing to disrupt this party for Leon Edwards. But certainly, yeah, I'm with you there. I think Leon Edwards probably gets the job done versus Nate Diaz. If Edwards does win, do you think he deserves a title shot next, or do you think they should make Kamaru Usman versus Colby too?
I think he deserves a title shot. I mean, the guy's been just winning and winning nonstop. Well, except for the last no contest.
Yeah.
But he's the guy that no one wants to face. And also, he hasn't fought the champ yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, Colby Covington got close, but number one, he did lose. Number two, he got finished. So you get another title shot after one win?
Yeah.
What was it, a year ago? Year and a half ago?
Yeah.
I think I saw a graphic that said it's been over like 670 days since Covington beat someone still employed by the UFC.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bode well, but he talks a lot of noise. And unfortunately, we're in a celebrity game instead of a fight game nowadays.
Oh yeah,
But
I mean it's well, we saw this last Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Edwards definitely deserves a fight of the Nate Diaz magnitude. What he's been looking for is something to finally get his name into people's heads. So yeah, with the good win, I'd say it's a much better matchup, a much more deserving matchup. And you can always have that Kobe Covington thing in your back pocket. Put him on the same card against someone like Burns or who's available. Wonder Boy, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean there's guys out there, yeah.
Yeah, but and then if you have them on the same card in the same press conferences, they'll still be yapping at each other, which is even better build up for next time. And then you can really say he really deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really deserves a shot if he wins this.
Yeah, I agree too. Yeah, I mean, he definitely deserves the title shot, and more so too because I get it that Colby Covington hasn't fallen after that loss to Usman. Even though he got knocked out in that fight, still, I mean, I think some people have forgotten that he got his jaw broken, was getting beat up somewhat late in that fight. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't fallen that far. So does he deserve another title shot at some point? Yeah, if he keeps winning. But I always hate to just give that rematch like this. Like that's what boxing does a lot, obviously, and I don't want to see that here. I want to see Edwards get a title shot, and then if Edwards falls or if Edwards wins, whatever, then maybe you decide what to do with Colby Covington at that point with that title. So I agree with you there. We'll just give a couple.
I keep telling my co-host Jordan that it's not WWE.
No, it's
you don't
not.
Keep getting another title shot because you were close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in the line, buddy.
Yeah, there's close but no cigar. There's no sometimes I talked about this with Miguel Baeza last Saturday on UFC Vegas 28. I thought it was one of the rare times in combat sports and sports in general that a fighter loses and their stock goes up. But at the same time, there's really no moral victories in sports, obviously. So especially for a title shot like this, yeah, I mean, there's no moral victory for Colby Covington nearly going the 5 rounds or only losing to Usman and then going back in there and then doing what we've seen him do, beat up Tyron Woodley. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Broken jaw, gets knocked out late in that fight. And then he's talking about how his jaw wasn't broke and he's making excuses for it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally on that one with you there, Eddie. A couple more here on the main card, and then I'll just throw a few at you or a couple more, and then I'll get you out of here, man. But you can even rapid fire through these if you want. But Damian Maia, Bilal Muhammad, and then Paul Craig, Jamal Hill. Who do you see winning those matchups?
I hate to say it because I like Muhammad, but Damian Maia is so crafty, and he's going to do one thing, and that's go straight for the takedown, and he is so hard to stop that I don't see him losing to someone at Muhammad's level, which sounds insulting, but I don't mean it to be.
Yeah.
But Damian Maia is still Damian Maia.
Yeah.
Paul Craig, he's always fun to watch, so I'm just looking forward to that one being a bloody mess, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be one of my follow-ups for you, and that's what one of my I think the biggest thing you could predict in that fight is violence. So, in your opinion, what would you think? Over, under 1.5 rounds in that one?
I'm hoping over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see it going the distance.
You could see. Oh wow, you could see it going the distance. Paul Craig, Jamal Hill.
But well, that doesn't mean discounting either their power.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping.
No, I hear you on that one, man. I hear you. I mean,
the night went all over it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's gonna be a great fight, and they're John in the hotel room and they're the hotel lobby, and it's all over everywhere now. I think they got it on like the countdown episode or the embedded episode, something like that. Paul Craig is telling him that his breath smells, and then Hill's saying, well, my hands are nasty, and you're gonna catch these too, on Saturday. So some fun stuff there. We'll see. I mean, any Paul Craig fight, any Hill fight, as we've seen so far, very entertaining. So we'll have to see what happens in that one. Out of all these, and maybe you can even go, and again, we're not going to go too far down the prelims here, but out of the prelims, out of the main card, which fight are you looking forward to the most in your opinion? Like which one all week have you just been buzzing to see?
On the main card?
Or even prelims, like I said, it doesn't matter. Whichever fight that you've been really excited for.
Well, I hate to go scratch, but it's got to be Adesanya versus Vettori, just because there's so much unknown.
Yeah.
We don't know how Adesanya is going to rebound from his first MMA loss. We don't know if Vettori has improved as much as he thinks he has. And really, just like watching Adesanya striking.
Yeah.
there's always that dream of one day having him against MVP, just because that would just be craziness. So he's always fun to watch. I just don't like listening to him.
I can't blame you. That's a lot of people now, especially after losing the way he did. But yeah, the Page fight. I mean, we're hearing now Michael Page MVP that he is getting offered some things, maybe along with the UFC, maybe to come over. So that would definitely be very fascinating. He has Eddie Cross, and Eddie. Oh, before I get you out of here, I have one more for you, and maybe the biggest question I have for you today. Okay, celebrity boxing coming up this weekend. You got Lamar Odom or Aaron Carter?
Oh my God, I completely forgot about that one.
I did too, but I thought I would throw it at you because, we're a combat sports show here. I'm not going to mention it any other time on the show. So I had to throw it at you, who you think's going to win, Lamar Odom or Aaron Carter, with Chuck Liddell as a special guest referee.
Next week's Anderson Silva fight.
Yes.
See, that was my next celebrity boxing thing in my head.
Yes.
And going, why don't you put him against the old guy? But that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Isn't Lamar Odom like 6'11"?
He is. He's much bigger. He is giant compared to Aaron Carter.
Yeah, all he's got to do is use his jab, and he'll win the fight easily. So I'm going to go with Odom.
I'm going Odom too.
Even with the greatest boxer alive, that size makes a difference, okay? That reach makes the difference. If Mayweather couldn't get inside and do real damage, I don't think Aaron Carter is going to.
I agree there with you. I think the size is going to be way too much. To be honest with you, I'm surprised. I know it's a exhibition or a celebrity boxing match, whatever they're calling it. Chuck Liddell, like I was saying, is the special guest referee. I think they got a iced tea on the telecast, something like that. So I know it's a sideshow. Sorry, say it again.
So I'm going to have to mute the commentary.
Yes, you will. Unless you want to get some like Law and Order SVU type slogans, I guess, from Ice T. Yes, you will. Definitely.
No, I'm a Law and Order organized crime guy now, so no.
Okay, so you're not so there you go. You're definitely gonna have to mute the commentary with Ice-T on the telecast there. He is Eddie Cross from 104.9 The Horn in Austin, Texas. Eddie again alongside co-host Jordan Wahlberger, the most dangerous show in Texas, Fight Night Radio. You can follow Eddie on Twitter at Eddie Experience. And again, that's the X instead of the E at the beginning and then extra E in the middle there at Eddie Experience. You can also follow Eddie's show on Twitter at Fight Night ATX. They do shows every Wednesday night, again, 104.9 The Horn. Go check them out. Thanks, Eddie, for jumping on with me today, man. I really appreciate it. We're going to enjoy hopefully some great fights coming up Saturday night, UFC 263. Take care, my friend, and I'll talk to you on Twitter about whatever crazy stuff happens, and maybe we'll meet up for a beer next time UFC comes to Texas here again. I keep missing you at these events.
Sounds good, Jeff. But before I go real quick, just a quick reminder, Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderwood, flyweight title eliminator. That one could be really, really good too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's the one I said earlier this week on episode 93 of the podcast. I said, I went through the 5 fights I'm most interested in. And that was one of them that I don't think is being talked about enough, is Calderwood versus Murphy. It will be a title eliminator, and I'm surprised it's not a little bit farther up this card, even though it's really stacked. But you're definitely right there. Yeah, me too. I'm really surprised. Eddie, thanks for jumping on with me, man. I'll talk to you down the line here sometime in the future.
My pleasure, Jeff. Enjoy the show.
Thanks to Eddie once again there. That was a lot of fun. Eddie, always a fun guy to talk to about the combat sports world. And how about that there? I didn't even mention that the whole sport. Instead of mentioning other boxing matches in which YouTubers are in, maybe we can talk more about Lamar Odom versus Aaron Carter. Yes, that celebrity boxing match is coming up this weekend. I do think Lamar Odom is going to get the win. I can't believe this is being sanctioned. I don't know. We're not going to get into that. I'm not going to throw that in today's preview show. Just scratch all of what I just said out and that question with Eddie there. But it was fun throwing that out there and fun to bring on Eddie in general onto the Man in the Cage podcast. All right, that's going to do it for me. As I said today, that's part 1, part 2, all of it. I'm going to be back a little bit later today with a live episode of the Man in the Cage podcast, a pop-up episode like I like to call them, reacting to the UFC 263 weigh-ins, and then also getting into some final Bellator 260 thoughts leading into that card. Should be a very good one tonight. I'm going to have some post-fight press conference quotes getting tweeted out there. I'm also going to ask some questions. I'm going to be on the virtual media room doing that. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at Man of the Cage Pod. Same thing on Instagram, guys. Going to have some more content all night for you, all weekend, Saturday night. I'll be tweeting out during UFC 263. Going to be tweeting out during the Shakur Stevenson fight. So make sure you follow me, keep it locked, and let's have a great time. Again, this is a great weekend to be a combat sports fan. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Man of the Cage Pod, Instagram at Man of the Cage Pod. up on the website, manintthecagemmma.show, latest episodes, all that stuff. Go over and head to the YouTube page, Man in the Cage MMA and Combat Sports Podcast. Subscribe to the channel there, and then head over to the other audio channels if that's what you're into. Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever podcast guys are. Go and hit the follow or subscribe button there to get the latest notifications. All right, everybody, have fun tonight. Have fun Saturday night. And then I'm going to meet you back right here on Monday for episode 95. We're going to go wall to wall. PFL reaction, Bellator 260 reaction, UFC 263 reaction, Shakur Stevenson reaction. There's gonna be so much to do. I might have like a 3-hour show on Monday, but it's gonna be awesome. Meet me back right here on Monday for episode 95 of the Man in the Cage podcast. We'll react to everything. Send me your comments on Twitter at Man in the Cage Pod. And otherwise, yeah, have a great weekend. I'll talk to everybody coming up on Monday.